Welcome to the Other Side Pod. I'm Nadine. We're not experts. We're just humans having a human experience we think you can learn from, or relate to, or laugh at, or cry over. So hit download, dive in, and hear how folks found themselves on the other side. Mandie, what got you out of bed the day after your mom died?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. What did get me out of bed the day that my mom died? I had my friend Steph came to stay with me that night. So she had already booked her flight. She didn't know what day my mom was going to die. She's not a psychic, but she had a feeling and she got herself to Ottawa just like a few hours after my mom had passed away from Vancouver. And she was staying in my house. And while I had her and my other best friend Kiri and Justin, I had this like surge of energy the day that my mom died. I came home and I slept for a few hours and then I woke up and I was like, okay, I have to start getting things done. There's like a million things we got to do when someone dies. And so I had already booked our appointment with the funeral home. And they were like, are you sure? Like I called the funeral home and they were like, are you sure you want to do this tomorrow? Like, it sounds like it just happened. And I was like, yep, just a few hours ago, for sure. I will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Wait, did you book this appointment before she died?
No, right after.
Oh,
Right after. I got home,
bless.
I took a nap on the couch, and then I woke up and I was like, time to book some appointments.
Time to get the admin done.
Yes, time to start getting the admin done. And so that was what got me out of bed because I knew that Steph was in the room next to me. And I think I had fallen asleep on the couch. I slept on the couch for a long time after she died, just because going to bed seemed like an extra chore. And I woke up and I was like, okay, time for us to get ready and go to this funeral home. We're going to get a coffee and then we're going to go meet. And that was it.
So having support there and then something to do.
Something to do. Yeah, that was one. Just knowing I had to go and get shit done. Like I have to move forward.
I wanted to have you on the podcast, my first guest on the other side, because you lost both your mom and dad in 1 year.
I did. Yeah. 11 months to be exact.
That you smile. I did.
I sure did.
The other side of a dead parent is one thing, but the other side of two in less than a year is, something I can't imagine. Who went first?
My mom. Yeah. We found out she had cancer September 23rd, and she was gone by November 21st. That was the day that she died. I had a feeling even the day before she was diagnosed, she had texted me and she said, I'm going into the ER. And this is like pretty routine for my mom. She had a myriad of health issues. So it wasn't a surprise that she was going to the ER. It was just kind of another thing that was going on. And I asked if she wanted me to go with her. And she said, no, I've got my iPad. I'm just going to like hang out and wait. It was like very routine. And I felt weird. I was like, I don't know, this feels off. Something about this feels wrong. And I called her before I went to bed and I said, are you still there? And she said, yeah, but they've got me in a bed, so I'm okay. And I said, I'll leave the house. Like you're a short drive away. And she was like, no, I don't want you to come. I'm going to be out of here soon. And I said, well, let us know when you're done and we'll drive you home. And I woke up the next morning to a phone call from my mom being like, I'm still here. I don't have any answers. And that was like the second I knew that it was deeper than what she had on. And about 10 minutes after that, she called back and said, there's a doctor here. And they said that you probably want to hear this too. And so she put me on speakerphone and he said, I would prefer to do this with you in person. And I was like, yeah, of course I can. I'll be there in about 5 minutes. And I was talking to my husband on the way there. And I was like, okay, so this doctor has said I have news and that he wants me to be there in person, which is never a good sign. And then as I was hanging up, he said, there's no rush. And I was like, also not a good sign. Okay, this is not great.
Right.
And we got there and he said, it's everywhere. We don't know what kind of cancer you have because it's in so many places. It's really widespread and we'll have to wait for you to see an oncologist. But I can confirm for you today that you have cancer. And all of the hospital visits over the last, decade and a half had been, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? Like, it was always like we would hold our breath, and it was just like, oh, this is it.
This is it.
It
How
just
old
felt
was your
so
mom?
different. She was 66,
Right. And how old were you?
31.
There was just like a knowing.
Yeah. I knew right away. I was like, oh, this is the time that we've been waiting for. I didn't know it was going to be that fast. Like, I was really shocked when we did see the oncologist and we found out what the prognosis was. I was just trying to stay calm for her because she was really upset,
Mm.
obviously, as you would be when you've been in the ER all night and they're like, FYI, you have cancer everywhere. And I just said, we don't know anything yet. I said, I know you're upset. You're allowed to feel all the feelings you want to feel, but we don't know anything yet. So we just have to wait and see what they tell us when we get some answers. And that, unfortunately, that was it.
And so she got the prognosis pretty quickly.
About a week later.
Oh, a week. Okay, wait. Can we talk about that awful week between diagnosis and waiting for any kind of plan, treatment, prognosis?
Yeah. So we went and got her, and then we had to go to the drugstore and pick up her prescriptions and stuff like that. And so we dropped her off, and she was so tired. And I said, I'll just wait here. And she was like, don't worry, I've got Russ, my stepdad. I use it interchangeably, but
Right.
I've got Russ. He's here. I'll be all right. Go home and get some sleep. And so I went about my day and I said, I'm a phone call away. I will be here.
Wait, when you say you went about your day, like work?
Yeah, I had to go back to work.
Really?
Still like contract teaching and coaching, right? So I was my own boss. If I didn't work, I just didn't get any money. So
Right.
I had to go do things, go
Right.
make some money. And she slept most of the day. And, we talked later and she was like, I feel a little better. You're right. We don't know anything. And so they called the next day and they had made an appointment for the Friday. And that was the same week I had to leave for Chicago for the marathon. And
It's like you were running the marathon.
yeah, and I was sitting with her on her bed and I said, I won't go. Like, I don't want to go. And she was like, you have to go. That's silly. We don't
Mhm.
know anything yet. Gonna be okay. And I said, I don't want to miss this big doctor's appointment. And she said, we're probably not even going to find anything out right away. So just don't stress about it. Go have fun and we'll talk about it when you get home. And so we took her to some appointments. She had some x-rays, she had some other scans. And then I left on the Thursday and a friend of hers came and picked her up on the Friday and took her to the appointment. And I was in the expo picking up my race kit in Chicago. And I saw my husband's watch go off with my mom's name on it.
Mm.
And I said, what's that? And he said, oh, just someone from work was emailing me. And immediately I was like,
Ah.
liar. And I didn't say anything. And he shooed me away. He was like, didn't you want to go and get a shirt before we left? Like, shouldn't you go find that? And I was like, okay, all right. And
Mm.
I chose to believe him. And I was like, maybe someone just has the same name as at his company. And I walked away and I came back and he just looked weird. I'd never seen him make that face before. He just looked really sad. And he said, I think you have to go call your mom. And I was like, shit, this is it. This is it. I'm going to find
Yeah.
out about her cancer, like what the prognosis is in the expo in Chicago. And so I walked away and, there's like crowds of people everywhere. You're just trying to like make your way through. And I called her and she said, they said that it's too widespread to treat. Um, the most they can do is a little bit of chemo and it might get me to Christmas, but it'll be pretty uncomfortable and I don't want to suffer. So they think I have about 2 months. And she had 2 months less 2 days from the day that she was diagnosed with cancer to the day that she died.
How do you get off that phone call and continue living?
Great question. We sat there in silence on the phone for a little while and I just remember being like, no, like this isn't fair. And she was like, I know, it's okay. We can talk about it when you're home. I don't want this to ruin your trip.
Precious.
I don't want this to ruin your trip. Um, and I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll just go have some fun. Um, and,
Yeah,
and
right.
so we hung up the phone and I said, I'm going to call you when I'm back at we were staying in an Airbnb. And I said, I'll call you when we're back at the Airbnb. And she said, okay. And we hung up and I had to go back into the expo. And there's this big, at the Chicago Expo, it's sponsored by Nike. And so there's this big Nike store right in the center of the expo where there's like people
Dreams.
taking pictures and they've got air horns and they are blasting that Rihanna and Calvin Harris song, We Found Love in a Hopeless Place. And so I walk in and I'm like shell shocked. And the music is just blaring. It's just like beat, beat,
Like you
beat,
can feel
beat.
it in your body.
And the air horns are going and I'm dazed, right? Like I feel like someone just hit me in the head with a frying pan. And
Yeah.
I I have to try and make my way back to where Justin is. And I walked through someone's photo by accident because I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings.
Imagine seeing that photo now.
And they were like, hey, watch where you're going. And I was like, sorry. And so I finally find him and he was like, I'm so sorry. She told me not to tell you. She told me to get you to call. And I was like, it's not your fault. I do know that you lied to me. Didn't love that, but I get it. And so we were there with my friend Steph, the one who flew from Vancouver, and my friend Jenny. And Justin texted them and said, we're going to meet back at the meeting place that we'd agreed on. We just got the call about Mandie's mom. So we're going to go back. And within minutes, we had all met up in the same place. And they were like, I'm so sorry. It was just like I just felt really held physically and like emotionally. They were like ready. They were like, we've got you, whatever you need. It's whatever you need to do, we'll do. You want to go back to the Airbnb, we'll go back. You want to go get lunch, we'll go get lunch. Like whatever you need to do, we'll do. This is your weekend. And so we all went back. And I just cried a lot. I just cried a lot. And I called my mom and we talked until she said she needed to take a nap because she was really tired, obviously. And I went and got my nails done. Which
wait, like a pre-booked
no.
a pre-booked appointment? No.
Okay. There was like a string of nail salons on the way from the subway station to our Airbnb. And I was like, I'm gonna go get a manicure. And Justin was like, okay, do you want someone to come with you? And I was like, no. And I remember getting there and I made the appointment and I watched, I think it was, what's that show? Emily in Paris. I'd never seen it before in my life. And I just watched 3 episodes of Emily in Paris while they did my nails. I didn't say a word. I just sat there and watched this very ridiculous show. Someone was sabering a champagne bottle and like cut off their finger. And I just remember being like, huh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you live suddenly in this other world where things like, it's almost like you have headphones on or something.
Yep.
There's like a sound barrier and you take in things slowly but so clearly. Like mundane things. Yeah.
It felt like being stuck in mud. Like everything was slow.
Yeah. Yeah. And like then walking through like dense fog, but everyone else isn't in it with you.
Yep. Everyone else seems normal. They're like, everyone feels like they're running. And I'm like, wait, sorry, what are we doing? What's coming next? What's happening?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find in those moments, because you said your friend said, we can do whatever you want, we can go get lunch and then it just stood out to me because I know you need to fuel yourself and generally you and I love to go out and eat and we love food. Food becomes such a weird thing for me in like these moments of deep grief and I can't explain it. Can you?
Yeah, I think it was different for me because I have a history of disordered eating. And when things get stressful, I just stop. And I knew that I couldn't that weekend because I had to run this marathon and you can't not eat and run a marathon. You can't do both of those things. And so I felt like really dedicated to making sure that I stayed on my schedule of food so that I would have enough energy to finish the marathon. So I did all of my usual things, but we didn't go out for dinner until after the marathon. We didn't go out. We just kind of like stayed in the apartment and I had my usual boxed macaroni and cheese And
Right.
like that's my thing before a race. I like always eat the same thing. And I ate a lot of carbs and that was it. I didn't really go out and do things. We went window shopping for a little while just
Right.
to like get out in the sun, went to a couple bookstores and really just tried to pretend it wasn't happening. And then it
Mm,
wasn't until after when I got home where food got so much trickier because it was just like, I'm so busy. I'm going from here to there. She was at home for the first month and a half. And that was different because, you know, we would like share food. Like we'd go over for dinner. I remember the last night she was at home. Um, all of us, we went and got Chinese food. We ordered in. And that was like, it was just something we used to do when I was a kid, right? So we shared this like little experience again. And then by that Monday, she had fallen a couple of times and it was time for hospice. And so when she was in hospice, I basically didn't eat. I didn't eat for
yeah.
2 weeks. Um,
Right.
and it was really hard after it to build that back up. It was almost like a muscle that had like atrophied. I just like didn't remember how to feed myself.
Right.
Basic human things.
Do you find food tastes different? Because for me, it's tasteless.
Yeah, it was a tool to survive. It was like, I have to eat this, otherwise, I guess I also die, but I don't
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Like it's a chore. I find it such a weird phenomenon for me because I know other people reach for different things and it's comforting. But in those moments as well, it's almost like it stops.
Yeah.
But I'm very aware that it's stopped. Yeah.
Yes.
You ran the marathon?
I ran the marathon. I ran the 5K on the Saturday and then I ran the marathon on the Sunday.
So you have this phone call on Friday. You're in Chicago. You run the 5K race on Saturday, and
Yeah.
somehow I have to exist in the world knowing that your mom is dying. And then you run a marathon on Sunday.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
It was 4 hours of 4 hours and 40 minutes. 4 hours and 40 minutes of uh I don't listen to music often when I run now. Um,
Okay.
or at least I don't when I know I'm doing a race. There's so much going on that it kind of takes you out of the moment. And I really wanted to feel because I
Mm.
felt so numb. I was really desperate to feel something.
Wait, what do you want to feel? Like emotional, physical, or both?
I knew I'd feel the physical because that's a given,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
the emotional was, oh, I mean, when you get news like that, it's like your brain tries to protect you, right? And it just felt like I shut down.
Mhm.
And all I felt was pain. And I wanted to feel some sort of joy. I wanted to feel some sort of sense of community. I just wanted something to feel good. And when you do a big marathon, like in Chicago or New York or any of the big 6 or 7, um, the crowd is just different. People are out there, people are cheering for you, people have shots of tequila waiting for you, people have shots of pickle juice. Like it's just kind of chaotic and really fun. And you can hear people cheering for you specifically. They like look at your bib, they're like, yeah, go, Mandie, great job, you've got this. And I wanted to feel connected to something because I couldn't feel connected to her. She wasn't there and I
Oh,
couldn't be there with her. And so I ran uh almost the entire thing without music. I had my watch that would tell me when it was time to have a fuel, have a gel, have some water, whatever it was. Um, Justin is an A+ champion at getting across the city to be at different stops. So I think he, Jenny, and Steph had made it to like 9 stops that year, which is, over 42 kilometers is super impressive.
yeah.
And so it, it felt it felt like the last time I was going to feel good for a while.
Oh, Mandy. Right. And so you wanted to soak that in.
Yeah. I just wanted to
Mhm.
feel all of it.
Sometimes in a marathon, you could be crying anyway because it's a marathon brings out a lot. But were you crying for your mom during that?
It's funny, I don't normally cry at the end of my races, but I do
Okay.
cry at the end of other people's races. I've done volunteer work at the end of races, and I always cry for like strangers, and I have been at the finish line for friends, and I've cried with them, and I don't normally cry at the end of mine. And I immediately, as soon as I crossed the finish line, just started crying. And I called my mom on FaceTime and I was like,
Did
hey,
you?
I did it. And, we talked the whole time. I like held up my phone and I showed her my medal, and she was like, you did it for me. And I was like, I did it for you. And I had this feeling from that moment until we got home on, I think it was the Tuesday, that like I said, this was the last time I was going to feel good for a while, or feel like this for a while.
Yeah.
And so I tried, yeah, I cried and I laughed and I, hugged my friends when I got out of there. And I just tried to like soak it in, like every
Mhm.
second of whatever we were feeling. Um, yeah.
Do you remember, or does a moment in time stick out before you found out your mom had cancer? Um, just having that moment with your mom where like everything was good and you felt something different than deep discombobulating grief for the unexpected, because I know she has cancer and I know you can be told it's everywhere, but there's hope, there's always hope that trickles about. So before you knew anything, is there one moment in time that's close to when you found out she had cancer that stands out that you had with her?
We went to see the Barbie movie. It was Barbie summer. And I she had texted me and she said, oh, it's like my mom could never ask for anything outright. So she texted me and she was like, oh, it's like cheap movie day. All movies are $4 on like August, whatever. And I was like, okay, would you like to go to the movies with me?
Right.
You can just ask me if you want to go to the movies.
Yes.
I'd love to go to the movies. And she was like, oh, well, we don't have to if you're too busy. And I was like, just tell me you want to go see a movie with me, mom.
Yeah.
It's
Just
okay.
ask.
Just ask. And so we did. We went to see the Barbie movie, and I had already seen it, and I was like, you're gonna love this. And she cried when she was supposed to cry, and like all of the, yeah, there's like those moments where you look at your parents where they are not your parent for a second. They're just
Mhm.
like, I was like, she's just a girl watching the Barbie movie,
Right.
listening to America Ferrera's speech about what it's like to
Right.
be a woman. And I, we had not a, I mean, I guess I would say like a difficult relationship. It wasn't,
Or
moms and daughters are so interesting, right? Because no one can get
Mhm.
under your skin like your mom, because
Yeah.
no one knows you like your mom.
Yeah.
And so we had had a string of tough conversations that just weren't going anywhere. And I kind of kept my distance for a little while. And so we went to see this movie, and it was like the first time in a while where I was like, wow, we really got along this whole day. This was so nice. And then she coughed. We were driving her home and she coughed, and I went, that cough sounds real bad.
Mm.
And she was like, oh no, it's fine. I go to the doctor all the time, which she did. She was at the doctor like once a week. She had a
Right.
team of doctors that she saw regularly. And she was like, the doctor says it's nothing. I do still smoke, so not a big deal. And that was a month before she got the diagnosis. And I just remember it being the last, it felt like what I thought felt like at the time was, oh, this feels like maybe the beginning of something new. Like we can go out to eat and we can go to the movies, and maybe we've chilled out a little bit from like my early 20s, like teen years where we were constantly fighting. And then of course, like a month later we got the news, and it was like, oh, that's why it felt poignant. Because I knew somewhere
Yeah.
something was off.
Yeah, just one cough or something, right? That you try to ignore, even though something in your body is like, hmm, but then you're like, nope.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's this thing with your parents no matter what, where you want to trust them. Like
Oh,
I always
absolutely.
defaulted to them in the room, right? I was like,
Yeah.
they're the adults here.
Yeah, always. Even I remember I was driving home to see dad when he was dying, and he'd convinced me he wasn't. And then I remember my sister sent me this photo because I mean, I'd seen him, we'd FaceTime, but you know what cancer does to a body. I don't have to explain it. But then in the car, my sister had texted my brother and I this photo of her and mom and dad, because she lives in Newfoundland and I'm in Ottawa, and my brother's in Calgary. So she was in Newfoundland with my parents. And I remember it popped up on my screen and she said, he had a good day today. And the photo was so jarring that I I mean, it was misplaced anger, but I was so angry at my sister for sending this because I was like, this person does not look good. But I think even though I'd seen him, because he could convince me, Nadine, things will be better on the other side. I mean, now I know what that meant, but in the moment I took it quite literally. And I thought, oh, on the other side of his next chemo treatment. Or, you know, uh, yeah, your parents, they can convince you. Or I don't know, maybe it's just like innate belief that they're always going to be around and they're always going to be okay. And whatever happens, they'll figure it out, for you, because you're the kid. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so when you lost your dad, it was a very different experience.
Yeah. It was like the polar opposite. It's funny that you say that about the picture because up until September, he died in October, and up until September, I hadn't seen him in person. And part of that was because I tried to get in touch and I'd try to see him and he would cancel. And at the time, he was like, oh, I'm just tired. Oh, this, like, oh, that. And I now, in hindsight, know it's because he was really not well, right?
Right.
I thought it was the regular not well. He likes to sleep during the day, kind of the way he'd always been. And I didn't know how bad it had gotten until I saw him in person. And I just remember being so shocked at how frail he'd become and how sick he looked. And I think there's a part of me that forgot about it because last week my uncle died, or 2 weeks ago my uncle died, his brother. And I saw someone had posted a picture of them in one of the last months of Russ's life, my dad, my stepdad. And he looked so frail. And I remember looking
Russ, your uncle
Russ. And I remember looking at the picture and thinking, I don't remember him looking like this. And it's because I hadn't seen it until the very end. I think if I had seen it earlier, I would have known. But he sounded like himself on the phone. He was still posting 1,000 memes a day to Facebook. He was doing his boomer thing. And I was still mourning my mom. And I think about it a lot. I try to give myself grace on it because we didn't get to see each other. Obviously, if I had known how sick he was, I would have been there every day if I could have. And I wasn't because I didn't know. And I blame myself a lot for it. And I have to kind of pull it back because I truly had no idea that he was as sick as he was. And so when I saw him in September, he looked frail, he looked sick, but I was like, oh, he'd had a fall. I was like, he needs some physical therapy. We need to get him out of the house. And my uncle, who'd been staying with him, was like, oh yeah, we're going to get him a walker. We're going to start taking walks outside. He's going to be better. And a month later, he was just gone. And he went at home. He was in the bedroom. He called for my uncle. He said, Steve, can you get me a glass of water? And my uncle Steve went and got him a glass of water and brought it back. And he said, can you help me sit up? And so he sat him up on the bed. And Steve, the way he told it the night that he died, he turned around to get the water. And when he turned back, he had gone back against the bed and he was gone. And for me, it felt like there was no warning. It was just, he was here and now he's not. I was going to see him on the Wednesday. We had plans to see each other 2 days from then. And he just wasn't there. And it was so different because with my mom, it was like 2 months every day of just knowing that this thing is coming. When is it coming? Is it today? Is it happening today? Is it happening tomorrow? We're in hospice now. When does it happen? Is there going to be some miracle where she's there for another month? Is she going to make it to Christmas? What's going on? And then with him, I was walking out of a friend's house. We'd had dinner with a friend so that we could sign their wills. We could be a witness to their wills. And I walked out of the house and my phone rang and it was one of my aunts. And I looked at Justin and I said, this is not going to be good. This isn't going to be good. And he thought I said, this better be good. He thought I was being really sassy. And he got in the car. He didn't think anything of it. And I picked up the phone and he watched me. I was standing in front of the car and I had the phone in my hand. And I was like, oh, okay. And I got in the car and he went, what was that? And I said, we have to go to the apartment. Russ is dead. And he went, no, he's not. And I said, that's what I said. But we got to go. as much as I don't want this to be true, we still have to go. And until I got there and until I saw him, there was this thing of like, well, maybe he's not.
Right.
For some, like, maybe he's not. Maybe we can fix it. And obviously that's not true because that's not how that works. But it was so strange. It was completely different with my mom because we watched her go.
Yeah.
We watched her get sicker and sicker and sicker, and she followed all of the points that they said that were going to happen. And then I was there when she took her last breath. I was there when she died. And with Russ, we just got there and he was there on the floor.
He was still there.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, because he died at home. First the paramedics came and had to try and do CPR.
Stop it.
He had been dead for a considerable amount of time by that point. Like my uncle had tried CPR for a very long time before the ambulance finally got there. And then they were legally obligated to do CPR.
And you had to watch this knowing your dad was dead.
I wasn't there for this part, but Steve was. My uncle was, which it was just like horrific, obviously.
Yeah.
And eventually I think my aunt got there and said, he has a DNR, you have to stop. And they stopped. And so until the coroner got there, they actually couldn't let us in the apartment. They had everyone leave. And they couldn't let us in the apartment until the coroner came and investigated and then told us what had happened. And then we could go back in. And so when we got there, he was still intubated because they didn't know. So somebody had bagged him and then someone else had done the compressions. And so they still had the tube, which is obviously jarring. And he was just lying there. And it is a very weird thing to have seen both of your parents in that state. Like I was like, oh, they're there, but they're not there.
11 months later as well.
Yeah.
Was one situation harder than the other?
I think about this a lot, and I don't know that they were hard. One was harder than the other. I think they were both equally hard, just different hard. I think it was easy for me to mourn my mom because it was the first time I had lost a parent. It was, and everyone was so kind and generous, and they were like, God, this is like the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you. I'm so sorry. You take all the time you need. We've got you. People set up a meal train. People did like everything for me, which was so kind and wonderful. And then when Russ died, it was like, wow, this one's a shock.
Yeah.
And my friends were still there. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I didn't have a support system, but it was a different experience. There was no meal train. There was no check-in. There was just, I'm sorry for your loss.
Right.
And I compartmentalized it for sure. I wasn't done the first year of grieving someone. Everyone always says that first year is like really a different experience. And it almost felt like we had gotten to the end. I had 1 month left. We're almost there. And then it was just
back to the beginning in many
back to
ways.
the beginning. It felt like a reset. It felt like, oh, I have to do this all over again. And so I still often feel like at this point, I'm just starting to mourn his loss because I had to stop it for a second. Had to be like, I'm not done being upset about this. You can wait a couple more months and then I will be sad.
You're not going anywhere, so hang tight.
Yeah.
And grief will find you anyway.
Yeah.
I was talking to two women the other day, obviously, that I play pickleball with, because what else am I doing? And I had something on belonging to my dad, and I mentioned it and almost brushed it off. And both of them asked, when did he die? And I said, 5 years ago. And they're like, just so you know, 5 years is recent for the death of a parent. And it's people like that I want to immediately just squeeze onto, because I think for so many other people, 5 years, you're like, that's old news. And even in a year, it's like grief is highly inconvenient for other people.
Yeah.
Your grief, and then it feels inconvenient to you because, I'll ask you how you felt, but it's almost like I wanted to get myself together because I wanted to show up for all these other people in my life, some of them who weren't asking me to, and some of them, unfortunately, who were asking me to. So did you feel like maybe Russ's death just 11 months after all of this first year support for Mandie, it was like, did they not know how to show up for you? Was it the inconvenience of it, which sounds so cold? And I don't mean it to sound cold, but it's the truth. I think other people think it's highly inconvenient.
Yeah, I think there's also our society doesn't talk about death the way that we should, right?
Mhm.
We don't really prepare for it. It's like, oh, that's so dark. We don't want to talk about that. Like
Mhm.
we don't want to think about what can happen in the future. When it is really a universal experience. If we are lucky, we get to bury our parents,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? And if they're
absolutely.
lucky, we get to bury them,
Yes.
They don't want to live through the death of a child either. And until you can go through it, until you are on the other side of that door, you don't know what it's like. You can empathize and you can try to be there as best you can, but it is a really unique thing to lose the people that turned you into the person that you are,
Yeah.
and you can't understand it until you've gone through it.
Even still, even though David was with me every single moment, he was with me when we watched Dad take his last breath. He didn't miss a moment, a second of it. And even now, like one of my dearest friends just lost her dad last week, and I tell him like I'm so thankful that I can explain this to you, and I hope you don't know. For 20 plus years, his dad is 80. It's inexplicable, even though I can see you're deeply empathetic to the experience. Uh, you don't even know what's waiting. And it almost sounds like a warning, like you don't know what's coming for you, but you don't. And I'm so glad you don't, because
Yeah.
you shouldn't actually until it happens. And then why I like to talk about it and record this is because it's like, yes, you don't know what's coming and it's really awful, but also there's something there for you to continue to keep going. And it opens the door to humanity in a way I didn't expect. I remember being at the grocery store and looking around, and for the first time being like, half of these people probably know exactly how sad I am. And
Yeah.
they're out buying groceries. You know, like, Nadine, you can go walk your dog again, because there's a moment in time when I didn't think I could do anything again, shop for oranges or walk my dog. But knowing that other people have experienced this and they're still out doing their things, and eventually being able to show up at work in the way that they used to show up at work, or maybe in a different, better way. I don't know, but it's proof that I can make it, which is why it's so important to just share it. Be like, yeah, this is awful and this is how it feels. Yet the world keeps going. And my friend who just lost her dad wrote me yesterday, and her text was, I just left mom for the first time in the house by herself. I'm gone back to my own home. I feel awful. And she said, I could have stayed there for the rest of my life, sleeping in my mom and dad's house, so I didn't have to leave my mom alone. But I have to do this thing tomorrow morning because the world is still spinning. And I'm like, yeah. And knowing where she is, or, being able to put myself in her shoes in a way, that first week later, and knowing, yeah, the world keeps spinning, it's gut wrenching, but it's a bit of a gift, because, like you said, having to go to the funeral home gets you out of bed the next day when you don't think you can get out of bed the next day, or the next day, or the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting is and I don't know if you felt this way, when my mom died, that was almost a scary thought, was like, when she first died, you can rot, right? There's like this, like,
Mhm.
oh God, it's always gonna feel horrible and it's so hard to do everything. And then the idea that you're gonna be able to get up one day and notice it, but then to go about your day and not be stuck, almost feels like, for me, it felt almost like a betrayal. Like I was like, oh, I can't imagine getting to that point where I function normally as a human being. And like, yes, I'm sad, but I'm not crying every day. Like that feels scary. I want to feel like this forever because it means that I
Yeah.
loved them. And then until you have someone in your life that has lost someone who has meant that much to them, or lost a parent, or whatever, you don't know that you have permission to do it. Like it helped so much talking to people who said, you're going to feel like this for a considerable amount of time. The first few months are going to feel really gut-wrenching to do anything. You're going to come home, you're going to cry. It's just going to feel so acute. And then it almost feels worse when you're able to function, because it's like, maybe I just didn't care about them enough. Maybe I didn't love them enough, but that's how you're supposed to feel. Like it is going to get easier because you are still living and you have to go live your life. And it does not mean you didn't love them. It just means that you have to keep going. And my mom, I said during her eulogy, she was the blueprint. She lost her mom, her two brothers, and my grandfather in the span of 15 years. And she was the last one left. She was the last of a family of 5. And I mean, how painful is that, especially to lose your siblings that you are supposed to grow old with? And she had to get up the next day and raise 2 children and take care of her aging father and do all of these things. Watching her do that, it gave me the ability to be like, it's going to be all right. It's going to be different. It's going to feel really hard. And it's probably going to feel hard forever. There's not a day that I wake up and I don't think about them. There's not a day that goes by where I don't look at something and I'm like, I made that, or that's a picture of her and I think about her, or, oh God, like Ozzy Osbourne died yesterday and Russ was such a big Black Sabbath fan. And I was like, oh, I got to call mom. Russ would hate this. And then I was like, wait, she died first.
Who do I call now?
And I was like, who do I call? And so I called my husband, who didn't answer the phone. And I was like, who do I call?
I'm thankful I still can call my mom and be like, Dad would have hated this, or Dad would have loved this. What does it feel like? Because you bought a business this year.
Sure did.
Almost exactly a year ago, a little over a year. And I'm sure you wanted to place that phone call to your mom and your dad. I mean, your dad was here when you bought it. Buying a business, I don't know, applying for a new job, going on that vacation that you've been dreaming about, or getting that dog, or all the things that you want to call your mom and dad about, or your parent about, or your guardian, that person in your world, to not be able to pick up the phone. What is that, Mandie?
I don't think we ever get used to it. I think that there is something, like I said, our brain is trying to protect us. You know what I mean? It's trying to protect us from the reality of the situation. And so when I am walking from work somewhere, my immediate thought is, I got to pick up my phone because I'm going to call my mom. It's what I used to do. Yeah, still.
Wait, still? Right.
It's just 31 years of habit doesn't go away.
Yeah.
31 years of knowing that someone is on the other side of the phone or the door or whatever, and you can go to them, doesn't go away. It's a pattern. And maybe one day I will feel different, but I know from speaking to people that they still do it. They still are like, oh, I should call mom about this thing. Or, they have kids and they're like, oh my God, she did the funniest thing. I better call mom and tell her about that. And, it's been 10 years and they never met their children. And they're like, oh, wait, I guess I can't. And it feels like a hole for sure. It definitely feels like there's like an empty spot. There is an activity I'm supposed to be doing that there is room for that I won't do. And I had very generous friends as soon as she died, where I would text them and be like, hey, I'm just texting you because I was going to call my mom and tell her this thing. And it was because they had said, the next time that happens, just tell me. Text me.
Dearest humans.
And so I do, and it still happens. And I don't know that they thought that this was going to be forever. I think they were like, just until you get used to your mom being dead. But unfortunately, I'm not used to it yet. So
what is that, like 4 weeks? Like, wait, if you work for the government, you get 3 full days?
Yes.
3 whole days, Mandie?
Yeah, it's so wild to me that like bereavement leave is what it is. I've read a couple of different books on grief, and they talk about a different time in our society where we held space for it. you know?
Mhm.
The wearing black to a funeral comes from the fact that you would walk around wearing black for a considerable amount of time after your person died, so that someone would look at you and know that you are mourning and give you space or give you kindness or be able to take care of you. And as our society has developed, you know, there's less human connection than ever, but more access to it.
Mhm.
And I think there has to be some sort of middle ground where we're not just watching people from a distance, like looking at their
Yeah.
stories and being like, oh, they missed their mom today, or oh, they missed their dad today, or whatever. And like sending a little heart, like double tapping and being like, I'm there for you,
Yeah.
boo. There's something that I think that we can do. And part of it is this, right? Part of it is just naming it and talking about it because so many people don't understand it and won't understand it until they're in it. And then I'll have to navigate it alone.
What I love about the idea of knowing that someone is in deep grief because they're wearing all black, and the ability to be kinder to them. I think after you go through something like this, and not just the death of a parent, I think anything that jars you in life makes you a bit of a kinder human. Like if you have any bit of sympathy and empathy in your body, someone can be a total dick sometimes. I can be a total dick sometimes, but now I'm almost like, I'm not like enlightened. Every time someone's a dick, I'm not like, oh my gosh, who knows? Maybe they just lost their person. But it does stop me for a moment. And I do wonder, instead of just moving throughout my day and being like, what an asshole, because I probably didn't show up in the best way either when I was in this. One of my closest friends lost her dad 10 years before I lost mine. And he just died, and I was going through a divorce. So I was a hot mess. She was obviously not doing great. And we were both staying in my house at the time, and we were both in my bed, me and my friend. And I had my dog, she had her dog, and we were just lying in bed and we were sobbing. And she was reading out what they were going to write on his gravestone to me. She was reading it out, and I was just crying and crying and crying for her, but also for myself. And knowing that we were both in this incredible dark hole, and I didn't have the space to help her through it, and nor did she have the space to help me through my thing. And she was the first person I called, actually, when I got the call from my mom that dad had cancer. She was my first phone call. I think I just looked at my husband and was dad has cancer, and I was just sobbing. And intuitively or subconsciously, I picked up the phone and called Carla, and she picked up, and she was in the middle of she was somewhere with family, because I remember going like, I can hear people in the background, I'll let you go. And she said, something's wrong, tell me. And I said, how did you live in a world knowing your dad was dying of cancer? And she was the only person I wanted to hear from, even though David was right there. And as sad as I was, because he loved my dad, his words, it was like they were empty to me, because I'm like, you don't get it, and I needed someone who got it. And then when he died, I called Carla, and it was COVID, so I couldn't just go over there. I had to, like, I don't know, probably drove over and stood 6 feet apart from her, because it was the very beginning when we really did follow all the rules. And I just cried for her, actually, and said, I'm so sorry. I had no idea how to show up for you, but now being in this, I know I didn't show up for you the way I wish I did. And she said, you showed up for me. You were there. Don't worry about it. You did, you were a support system for me. But I'm like, nope, not like I will be moving forward. And now anytime someone loses a parent, I'm like, it's not that I know what to say. It's a knowing, right?
Yep.
That you can just sit next to that person and be like, yep, like you and I met so many times this year over work things. And for the first 4 months of that, even though I thought, oh, Mandy and I are going to chat about business and entrepreneurship, we defaulted to shit. We both have dead parents, and there were so
Totally.
many similar things in our experience of losing the both of them. And then actually, I got to know you so much better. But even when I didn't, I immediately felt held by you and seen by you, because I'm like, she sees me. I don't have to explain grief to her. She sees it. And I could tell. Um, and I don't know what we could say to people who haven't lost their person or their parent to help them be there for somebody else. I don't think there's anything to say other than, show up with empathy and kindness as much as you can, especially when someone's gone through loss. It's yeah, it's
Yeah.
unexplainable. Okay, one of the things, I mean, we're gonna sound like the saddest two humans on earth when we both admit this, but one of the things that I remember being like, Mandie gets it, is I said to you, there was a point in the first year that I'd lost him, and I said, I was crying one day and said to David, all my best days are behind me. And when I told you that, which I don't tell many people because I don't know, who wants to sit and have wine and chat about that? But I do. And I said it to you, and you were like, I said the exact same thing to Justin.
Yeah, we were in the car on the way home from they had just picked up her body, and we walked to the hospice, and we were just driving in silence. And I looked over and I was like, wow, I can't believe I've lived all of my best days ever already. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? And he went, what? He just like didn't know how to react to that. He's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I can't imagine having another best day of my life without my mom in it.
Mhm.
Even just like not being there for it, but like in the world, like that can't be a best day over. She's dead.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know how to, it was like I broke him.
And also probably because they don't know the way back from this, because it's because Justin hasn't lost a parent and David hasn't. So probably in those moments are like, not only have I lost my in-law who I loved and this dear human on the earth, and I have to watch my partner in this deep space of grief, I don't know I'll get them back. Maybe that's
Yeah.
where their minds were going. Because it, I mean, I didn't know I'd get myself back. There was a long period of time where I remember thinking like, well, that person's gone. And there were some people that I've since grown apart from that I could tell they were like, where is she? I almost felt like I tried to get myself back, not even for myself, but for them, because I'm like, oh, right, that's how I used to show up in the world. And they want that fun, happy Nadine back, and she gone.
Yeah.
Um, and now looking back, and for anybody else that's maybe listening, that's a little sooner in their grief, that person comes back twofold, threefold, fourfold, eventually, but she's never the same. They're never the same, but it's kind of it's kind of magical. I don't want to be the same person I was before that.
Yeah. I think to your point, I feel like I have a lot more grace for people. I feel more empathetic. I feel like a lot more fun because I'm very much when my mom died, I said the only thing I want to do is like live. I just want to
Mm.
live as big as I can for as long as I can because I didn't 31 is young to lose your parents, you know? There was like a little part of me that was like, man, you got your mom until she was 78. That's not fair.
Uh,
I was like, why do you have to leave now?
oh, and
And
if someone complained about their parent, weren't you like, you can go fuck off?
you know what? I really didn't because my mom and I had fought so much. Like we really
Yeah.
fought like cats and dogs. We were so similar in so many ways. Like I actually think back on it with a little bit of fondness now because I'm just like, God, we were so like, and we just like could not understand each other a lot of the time.
Right.
And we were not willing to see eye to eye. We were like, no, I am right and you are wrong. And so I have a lot more empathy for people who are struggling with getting along with their parent. And I have a lot more empathy for people who don't know how to interact with you about your dead parent
Mm.
because I think everyone's just doing their best. Like I really try to have some grace for like some people say weird messed up shit when you are grieving. Some
Mhm.
people I had, she's in a better place, at least she didn't suffer, which is always like, were you there?
Yeah. I think dying of cancer doesn't feel great.
Wasn't great.
Yeah.
At least you got, the time that you did with her, which is like, oh, that's very easy to say when you have a parent. And I just try to meet it with they don't know. They
Yeah.
don't know. They can't know. They can't know how you're feeling. They will, just like you did with your friend, they will eventually possibly look back on that moment and be like, oh, I shouldn't have said it like that. Or I didn't mean to not be there for them. Or I didn't mean to complain about my person in front of my friend that doesn't have their person anymore. Because we all fuck up, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sure I've said the dumbest stuff to people who are grieving. I hope
Same.
not, but I know
Yeah.
I'm sure I have. Like, we're all
Yeah.
fallible, but all you can do when you know better is to do better. And I think I honestly think that people realize it when they've said it. Like, when someone complains about their parent, they're just like, "Oh God, this happened," and then I kind of watch them go, "Oops." They don't need me to publicly shame them.
Wait, I was having dinner with my two best friends one day, and one of Carla, whose dad had died first, had lost her mom not even a year after I lost dad, and quite tragically. And so a year later, I'm home in Newfoundland. We're sitting at this restaurant at the bar having a drink, and myself and Carla and Jilly and Jill's parents, her mom has been dealing with an illness for a very long time. So we were chatting about that and the difficulties of that. And then we look over at Carla and she's just looking off into the distance and she goes, "Parents, wish I had them."
Yep.
We just laughed like, "Yup."
It is
Um,
honestly, you don't get a lot of good things when your parents die, but one of them is the ability to make a really good dark joke
it's
and
the
make
best.
so many people feel uncomfortable. It is one of the great joys of my life. I have two best friends who are so uncomfortable with the concept of death. They cannot, and they will not, they don't enjoy the jokes. They immediately freeze up. And I remember a couple months after my mom died, a friend of mine, one of my best friends, lived. You're going down the street in Canada and you turn left on this street to go to the hospice where my mom passed away. And then you go right to go to my friend's house. And in the past, they had gone around. They had gone an extra exit off the highway to avoid this street. And I noticed that we hadn't. We were going down that road and I went, "Oh boy." And I could feel both of them just, their shoulders got real high. They were in the front seat. Everyone got real quiet all of a sudden and we had to stop at the light. And I could feel Ellie with her hand on the wheel just going, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't." And I, "Hey, you guys remember when my mom died over there?" And they just went, "Oh."
Don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't do it.
And I was like, "It's funny. Come on."
Come on. Please keep sending me all the dead dad jokes. It's the
Always.
best.
Always. I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, you don't get a lot of, there aren't a lot of benefits.
No. But my God, there's some really good memes.
Yeah. Saying really out of pocket stuff is the only benefit to losing a person, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the night dad died, we were sitting around the table and his body just was carried out of the house. And David went downstairs to have some space. And my mom and sister and I were at the table crying but laughing because we were looking through photos for the obituary. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, imagine we put this one up, just like the most ridiculous photos that we have of my father. And we were crying, laughing so hard. And I'm like, this is how you get through. You know, you're going to have moments where you're not going to get off the closet floor. Then you're just going to have those moments where you laugh about the most ridiculous photo you can think of putting on your dad's obituary.
When they came and took my dad out of the apartment, the coroner arrived and his name was Russ.
Yeah.
And at that
Fancy.
point, I was like, I had checked out mentally. I think I was just cracking jokes because I was like, I can't believe this has happened to me twice in 1 year. And I had already made everyone feel a little uncomfortable. We had all worn black vests. It was fall, so we all wore these like puffer vests. And I was like, "Oh, we all match. That's fun." And my husband was like, "I already mentioned that. I already pointed that out." And I said, "Sorry, I couldn't hear you over the sound of my dad being dead." And my cousin went, "What?" It's like, wrong audience.
Oh,
All
God.
right. And then Russ walked in, this coroner, and he
Oh
would
my
not
gosh.
say he was like so uncomfortable. You could tell he was like, "Hello, my name is Russ." And I went, "Get out of here." I looked around. I was like, "No, no."
No one else saved this?
Oh my God, I thought it was so funny. And then we walked outside and it was a full moon. And I went, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Because that is exactly who he was as a person. He was like super spiritual and loved the moon. He was like a crystal guy. And I was like, you died on a full moon? And then this big gust of wind came up out of nowhere and knocked my uncle's hat off of his head as he was getting into his car. And I was like, as we looked at each other and we were like, that was him. That was him.
Come on, those signs that they're still there.
Totally.
Okay, that's sweetest. Especially when they're a bit cheeky like that. I'm like, I see you, Dad. I was driving Mom's car. I was home for a month after he died, and my family think that I'm not the best driver, even though I think I'm a perfectly great driver. And I was driving Mom's car. I was in it by myself, and I was driving probably a bit fast down the highway, and I hit a huge pothole that I obviously didn't see coming. And the car, like, when you hit a pothole and that I don't know what the sound is. I don't know what it means, but I know it's not good. And the minute it happened, I was like, I know, Dad. And like literally said it out loud and then had a little chuckle. Because there's just these times out of nowhere that he's just all of a sudden there. And you can't tell me he wasn't. And then it's fleeting. But it's times like that. And either knocking the hat off your uncle's head or still being irritated with you for driving how they would classify as not so great.
My mom was like a big joker as well. And when Steph came to stay with us, we have a TV in our spare bedroom. And Justin has all of these like things that hook up to the TVs and you can cast here and cast there. And I don't know how to use any of it. I know how to use Apple TV and that's it. And she was staying in the guest bedroom and she was lying down. We had all gone to bed and it was the night before the funeral. And she heard the TV go on. And she was like,
Okay.
That's weird. And she turned around and it was just a picture of my mom.
Stop.
And she went, Karen? Out loud. Karen. And then it went off. And and so she came to me the next day and she was like, I didn't know whether or not to tell you this. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. And so she tells me the story and I said, oh, I think I know exactly what happened. And so I asked Justin, I was like, did you go through the slideshow that we were trying to set up for the funeral today? And he was like, yes. And I was like, did you maybe accidentally cast it to Steph's television last night? And he said, yes.
Like accidentally or on purpose?
Accidentally. He was trying to cast it to the living room TV and he did it to the spare bedroom. And I was like, she noticed. So I was like, don't tell her. And so we told her after the funeral and she was like, I still personally think it was her. I still think that she was like, I'm just going to mess with her just for a second. And I think that would be really
honestly,
funny.
I don't even think I'd ever tell my friend. I'd be like, yeah, that was her last send off and it was to you. Obviously, you were a special person in their world.
You didn't get to meet her. She got there just a few hours too late because she was coming to meet her, but she missed out on it. So she just came to you on the television instead. So funny. She still, when she tells that story, the sound in her voice is just so real. Like she was frightened.
I feel like I could talk about dead parents for, I don't know, 3 more days.
Totally. I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
I know there's so much, but thank you.
You're so welcome. Sharing. It was my pleasure.
And you just lost your uncle last week, so I'm catching you in another moment of grief.
Yeah, and as everyone knows at this point, my step uncle and my mom's ex-husband.
So great.
What a tangled web we leave.
Before we sign off, can you please tell the joke that you told while giving your mom's eulogy? And then I'm going to hit stop record.
100%. So my mom grew up with this other family. Everyone knew each other in Britannia and all of these families were close. And so my mom grew up with this family. And so I have to tell the preface to this, which is my step uncle is my mom's ex-husband. And he was there before the funeral. And I said, hey, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the fact that I tell a joke about you during the eulogy. And he said, kid, we gave it a good shot. You do what you need to do. And I was like, thank you very much. And so I got up there and I'm like, that's where she grew up in Britannia. These were her friends. She grew up with the Conley family from which she met her ex-husband and my stepfather, who are 2 different people. And
Makes me love your mom so much.
it's so good. The room giggled. The priest was a little shocked. And that was like her in a nutshell. So I think she would have loved it. I know Alan loved it. I think Russ probably loved it too. I never got to ask him, but
I'm sure he did. And I honestly think they're right here listening.
totally.
Come on. I love you.
I love you. Thank you so much. I can't wait to do it again.
I know, right? We have to do this a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Mwah. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.